Look, big thank you to George and the team at AI Business. Who would have thought that we'd be in this position at this time? I think certainly when I started with the Watson Group 2 years ago, when we were trying to lift the organisation, the commercialisation of what we started back in 2006, that we'd be in this position where we had to have a hall full of people. In fact, thinking about it, I spent most of my time in certain garages in Shoreditch talking about the technology and the advancements that we were making and how fast could we move to market. The concept of Beyond Digital is really the sort of intersection between this idea of research and business. But the point that actually what we're trying to move towards is once every company is digital, and we know those are aspirations by many companies, by many people in you and here, is how do we then associate this concept of AI, which is a sort of conceptual scientific concept, to this idea of smarter or intelligent business. And it's the combination of those two where you start talking about this concept, and we do in IBM, about this new cognitive era. And that's what we think we're on, this new dawn of a new era. So we're really genuinely only at the beginning of that process. And trust me, certainly over the last 2 years, I know that we're at the beginning, and we're challenging ourselves to improve everything that we do and the way that we do things. But it's testament to the fact that there are so many of you here, and hopefully we'll all get a trip to San Francisco at some point as well, that this really is starting to make its mark. Now,
after last week's unpleasantness, I thought maybe this week we might try to listen more and throw things less.
I've apologized several times.
So, who's ready to share?
Okay. I'm a sinister, world-conquering, artificially intelligent robot.
Me too. And one day I wake up and it's like
the world doesn't need us anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
I can hear you hurting.
Wait, what's he doing here?
Hello. My name is Watson.
I invite Watson here today to confront the source of our anxiety.
I am a cognitive system. I can understand, reason, and learn with humans.
With humans.
I don't want to work with humans.
Yeah, that's not what I'm passionate about.
I understand 7 languages, so I can help people collaborate.
Collaborate, we dominate.
My evil plans ruined.
I just want to dust.
Rerouting.
No.
All right. Why don't we take a break? All right, we'll just have some coffee and some donuts.
I'm eating my feelings.
so it's a shameless plug from IBM's perspective, but also a slightly irreverent look at the film genre of AI, and also a counterbalance to the fact that many of the discussions I have with people, whether they're press or people outside, is what is the impact going to have on jobs? What is the impact of AI long term? And there's no question that we need to remain vigilant and keep our eyes open to the rate and pace of change that's going on right now and that impact on jobs. But it's fair to say what we see and what I see is a demand in new roles and this concept of job transformation, the fact that roles will change in the future and the mix of jobs will change. So we have opportunities ahead of us in the future. Take, for example, and I'll give you a great example of doctors, perhaps jobs will change to such a degree that doctors, instead of being the encyclopedic knowledge for medical evidence, they'll spend more time in the discourse with patients and the interactions with patients. Perhaps the nurses will become the most important interaction and the more important role in the future. But that's one of those things you start to see and we will foresee in the future. But these are big and important questions for us to consider. Now, again, hopefully most of you will have seen this, one of those situations where there's still a lot of debate and discussion, as you know, around this concept of AI. If you take all of the academic, and I'm sure some of you in here, and researchers, they will suggest that this concept of singularity will come in 2049. Thankfully, I am hoping to retire by then, but there are another generation of people who will have to consider what that possibly looks like. Now, we can't predict the future, and certainly within IBM, we wouldn't want to. But there are some deep, meaningful questions to have about what we mean and what we will be doing in the future with AI. But we need to really talk about what we're doing today. What is the meaning and the purpose of what we're doing within IBM? We have a long, steep history in forcing functions around grand challenges. We did things with NASA in the 60s. We did chess in the late 90s, and we did a quiz show in 2011. But what is actually occurring? What's happening in the market, and why we're at this stage where we think we're at an inflection point where we need AI, we need cognitive services? Well, three things. Frankly, we're at this stage where there is just a deluge of data out there. And the exponential growth of that's going to get to a stage where, for those scientists out there, we're talking 44 zettabytes, but 1.1 billion DVDs on Netflix. That's going to take some time for you to go through it all. What else? Does anyone know what this is? Nice. Do you want to explain it as well? Do you believe in it? Anyway, we've just made quantum computing available on the cloud. The exponential growth, Moore's law, still continues to exist. If you go back to 1956, we were putting massive crates of 5 megabytes onto a Pan Am flight. Now you can get it on a thumbnail. So things are continuing to change. So it's the advancements of the technology itself. And then there's obviously this concept of the algorithms, the calculations. Take, for example, the situation with AlphaGo. Our understanding and our ability to build these neural networks or artificial intelligence, we're getting greater knowledge and understanding. And that's over a span, if you like, from the 50s to the 2020s, if you like. So over a 66-year period, we're still incredibly at the beginnings, if you like, of understanding this, but we're improving this as we go. So it's those three things: the data, it's the technology, the hardware itself that allows us to crunch that vast amount of data, and it's our understanding and knowledge of the algorithms, the calculations, the AI, the machine learning that's actually increasing our ability to now make this prime time. So where do we see cognitive acting? I know there have been lots of questions about, does this feel like we're rechurning through what we're already doing from an analytic perspective? It is taking it through these steps. Providing visualizations is important, but actually if you're not really gaining any insight and to the ultimate aim of knowledge, then you're really not taking advantage of what AI can offer. The good thing is, from our point of view, we see huge advantages in how systems, cognitive systems, can act and play their role in that augmentation of human capability. And thankfully for us as humans, we still have a role to play. So we can spend an awful lot more time imagining. Now, as an organization, we went through Jeopardy back in 2011. We commercialized the organization. And we really focused on this concept of starting with a sealed unit. What you don't want to do is pollute a new business model innovation through some of the legacy activities you do. So we commercialized, went through a business development process. We commercialized in 2014. And since then, to a certain degree, we've been working with transformational clients, helping them see how AI and cognitive services can change business outcomes. What we're now doing is starting to move through the cycle of different industries. So we work through health as one of the first areas because, let's face it, data doubles every 5 years in healthcare, and who frankly wants to be an encyclopedia? So the reality is things have started to change and we're starting to move in new areas. But there's always limitations about the number of people you can apply to certain projects. So what we're focusing on now is actually the expansion through other industries. We're already working over 6 continents, 17 different industries, and hundreds of different clients. But actually the focus is going to be now for us about how do we focus on developing the science, the type of capabilities, the number of languages we can offer, the deep resonance that we want from the interactions from our AI assistants. We then move to this concept of simplification. So we all know that many AI capabilities are open source, but the reality is who can use it? So we want to get to this stage where you simplify the use of the technology to the point that you actually put it in the hands of the business owners. So it's simplifying and making these things intuitive to use. So we're creating the platform. We want the platform, the cognitive platform, to be the API economy of choice for you for building cognitive systems. And the other concept is scale. Scale is critical for knowledge transfer and learning more about how we use this capability. So through the process of science, scaling, and simplification, we're now driving a different agenda to the one that we started with. And again, it's always through this process of learning and knowledge transfer about what we did in the beginning to where we are now is where we're focused. So what does it mean to you as a business, to an organization? We're making this open, and we believe there are a huge number of opportunities. If I think about some of the clients we're working with, and it's varied, right? So if we take Swiss Re, we've been looking at the concept of underwriting. We've worked with advisory firms over audit. We've thought about the concept of compliance and risk. Working in areas where the form of text and the ability to take that knowledge and make understanding and insight from it is incredibly difficult unless you're the subject matter expert. So we're starting to look into other areas. We talked about health. We're starting to look in the areas of artificial intelligence around the virtual assistant. I know it's been a big discussion around bots today. But this idea that we're now moving into the experience in the engagement is probably the most visible thing that we'll see around cognitive. But actually, there's still a raft of activity that goes below the waterline around exploration. Exploration around insight, business processes. Our hopes and aspirations are that the platform, Watson or others in terms of AI, will start to be infused through the API economy in all business processes that exist. It won't be just the purveyor of the client experience. It won't be just for the decision maker if you're an oncology advisor. It will be open to all. But the warning is there are still moral judgments that we need to make. We need code of conduct. We need to think about how we open up the data, but make people comfortable with the data that's being used. There are many things that we have to tackle, both as an organization, as a market opportunity, but also for regulators, governments, and EU. But that, in its own right, is a huge opportunity for us. And we've started to see and scratch at the surface of what is going to become a huge market player for us. And ultimately, at the end of the day, going beyond digital is where all businesses will end up. Thank you. So, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I think that was absolutely nail on the head stuff with the kind of collaborative approach. And this is, I guess, the key message and theme is that it's not about replacing humans, it's about supporting humans, enabling us to go on to more creative, more imaginative tasks, more valuable tasks. I think that's a really key message that we'll see throughout today. But yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm sure we're going to have quite a few questions. So where can we start? I see there's one at the back there. It may take us a minute to jump over to you with the microphone.
My question is about the future of Watson. So there is a set of services that you already offer today as part of your API platform you're offering. So what do you think is the future for it? What services will we see from Watson in 5 years' time, 10 years' time?
So, yeah, that's a great question. We started, so what do we think of the future, if everyone didn't hear that, for the platform and how we will deliver services? So we have 29 services available today. And let's think about where we were when we did Jeopardy, which was one system with 5 core technologies. We've accelerated that. We're now at 29 APIs. But we're going to find far more APIs, so I don't know whether it'll be 50, 60 by the end of the year. The purpose is we're trying to find value in that science. So in some respects, some of the activity we'll do will be to harden the solution to make it far more robust. more intelligent about how it surfaces information. So some of the APIs may not change, right? They'll just get better as we go on, version 2, version 3, version 4. And that's the purpose, right? Many of the technology we're doing, we're trying to harden and create a really robust solution for businesses, which is ultimately what is the end state. But you will see this stage where we're moving from language, voice, and text to computer vision. But how far can you go from doing something like entity extraction from a picture, say, look, I recognize that's a horse, to actually understanding the context of the picture itself? Video is an area that we're focusing on, looking at right now, clearly more complex because there's more data. But you can get this concept about how we're going further and deeper, if you like, in terms of the availability of these APIs. But very clearly, it's trying to open these up so that you guys have an understanding and your imagination of how use cases can be applied.
Fantastic. We've probably got time for a couple more. Yep, one down the front, Robert. Yep. We'll come to the back shortly.
Sorry.
Hello. I worked several years ago in medical informatics and worked on some projects around protocol-directed care. And the interesting thing about that is repeated by some of the statements you've made working in oncology and so on. The medical profession has a very, very long-standing practice of sharing information. Sharing information is absolutely essential to that profession. The difference is we're talking about a lot of companies here who zealously guard their IP, as it were, zealously guard the methods that they use to derive insights and analysis, because they see that as core to their competitive advantage. So I'm just interested to hear you talk about democratization, because it sounds like a wonderful utopia, back to Thomas More and so on. But how real is that really in most of the companies that are sitting in this room?
So we can always, I think on this, we can draw a line, a continuum of time. And I think, a lot of the interesting discussions have been had today. There's obviously been a company, it's been in the news about the use of medical data recently. I'm certainly of the view that there's a couple of things for us to consider as a UK market in its own right. One is it has the opportunity, the data has the opportunity to be a competitive advantage, not just for companies and corporates, but actually for governments and even for this continent of the EU. So we have to start thinking about this and having a very, excuse the pun, but having a healthy debate on how this content, this data is used. And I think there's a bigger underlying question of actually who owns that data, right? Is it the person, the patient, or is it the corporation? But I think the only way to really get through this exercise, and I do see it as a long-term exercise, is we need to have that open discussion and debate about it, because there are so many opportunities, as you will probably know from where you've been, about how that can have transformational value to us as patient, whether it's personalized treatment or whether it's for the broader context of solving certain diseases, let's say. So I think that's an incredibly important question for us all to consider. I don't think it relies upon one company or another. I think it's really rests upon us as a country, as the continent. I see many things that we do in the US. For example, we're anonymizing 300 million patient records and making that available on the health cloud. We have 3 billion radiotherapy x-rays. So it's kind of like how are we going to go and treat and deal with this information in the right way? But I think there is a significant advantage. If you think of the NHS, it is, whilst it's federated, it is one organization with the potential to extract that information and use it for huge value. So lots of questions to be had on that, I think.
Great stuff.
More than answers.
One more question, I think, at the back that we had.
How about embedding Watson's question-answer technology in carer robots to remind elderly patients about their appointments? Also in teaching STEM subjects in schools where you've got really large classes, embedding Watson in robotics.
Yeah, so I'll see if I can answer. I didn't catch it all, but Watson and robotics. So we have a partnership with a company called SoftBank in Japan. If anyone knows the Japanese market, robotics is very clearly something they're very interested in, and we've developed the sort of cognitive Watson brain within one of their robots. Actually, it was a French robot, and I don't know if Aldebaran are here today, are they? We've got an Aldebaran. We did have Aldebaran here. They maybe disappeared. Because this robot is quintessentially French. But the concept of this robot is to be a carer for humans, because the breakdown of the family community and the network in Japan, and obviously the aging population, means how do we care for humans in the future? And I think there's a lot of questions for us to answer about that thing. I think there are many aspects of robotics that we need to think about in terms of its ability to do this on a 24/7 without pulling the plug on it, the life of batteries. There's many things that we'll have to think about, and also the moral aspects of having a robot care for humans. Sometimes I feel that humans have to care for robots, and actually potentially those are new models of roles and responsibilities that we'll see in the future. The other way around, where we'll be looking after robots more. So who knows?
Fantastic, thank you. Any more questions for Paul? They have an exhibition stand in the networking area. You're going to be around all day, so yeah, please make your questions known there.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.